Can you think of a moment from your career where you went against the grain and it really paid off for you in unexpected ways?
The Toronto Symphony Orchestra came into our office one day, and it was interesting because the director of marketing at that time was right out of central casting for a symphony. So he was beautifully dressed, silver hair perfectly in place, beautiful British accent. And he told us basically that the symphony, Toronto Symphony, had a problem. And the problem was that the majority of their subscribers were 70 and 75 plus years old. And the problem with that, of course, is mortality. So no younger people in their 40s and 50s weren't coming in the other end of the funnel. So he said, we need a radio campaign. We're an arts organization. We don't have a lot of money. We can do a radio campaign to try and attract a younger audience. And I sat there in the briefing thinking, I don't know how satisfying this job's going to be, this assignment. You know, it's a symphony, it's pretty serious business, and classical music isn't really a yucca minute, and it's, you know, and he's, you know, his visage was everything I thought the symphony would be. And as he's putting his coat on in my office, he's got one foot out the door, he turns around and he says to me, oh, by the way, blow the dust off this place, and winks at me. And I knew I had an opportunity. So I wish I had the commercials with me to play for you, but the commercials we did were nothing like a symphony has ever done before. I'm Afraid of the Toronto Symphony Orchestra was the theme. And I talked about how in the commercials, I had an announcer interviewing people saying, you know, I never go because I'm afraid to clap at the wrong time. And someone else says, I can't pronounce Wagner, it's Wagner, him too. Like, it was just, I just had fun, gentle fun with all the intimidation factors. So I thought, because I said to myself, why don't I go to the TSO? What stopped, when Debbie and I have date night, why do we never ever think of going to why do we never suggest, why do I never want to go to the TSO? And when I was really honest with myself, I knew it was all those they're going to see my jeans and bodily throw me out onto King Street. I literally thought that was going to happen. So I wrote an ad, a campaign, having gentle fun at all. The campaign had no classical music in it. When the symphony asked me after I read the scripts to them, they said, well, where's the classical music? I said, that's not the problem. You told me that wasn't the problem. You told me that the audience was out there, they're just not coming, because they knew that people were downloading classical music. The ratings for the classical music radio station in Toronto were going up. They knew the audience was there, they just weren't coming. I said, that's not the problem. They love the music. You told me that. The problem is it was a hunch, it was intuition, I had no research, that they're feeling intimidated. Mm-hmm. And then when we ran that campaign, for the first 10 days, not a single response. And I had a very nervous TSO client. And then the calls started to come in. And one of the first calls was from a woman who said, and I quote, something like, you can't possibly be stuck up if you're running that campaign. And that was the exact, not the words perhaps, but the exact sentiment we were hoping to tap into. Mm-hmm. They received more subscriptions in the first 6 months of that year than they had in the previous complete year. Mm-hmm. And 80% of those subscriptions were new subscribers. So the intimidation was the thing keeping them away. So that was a complete against the grain, because all advertising Symphony's done, including the TSO, were schedules, theme nights, and performances. That's all they'd ever talked about in their marketing. Yeah. And I didn't talk about any of that.
Yeah, and it echoes some of the themes from Bill Bernbach in terms of the importance of using humor to...
It's not the only way to do it, but I think humor is the shock absorber of life. And I think it creates a polite foot in the door when someone's there to watch something else and the ad intrudes. I think humor is this lovely way of taking 60 seconds of someone's time.
And that was so interesting to me, how these people that you profile feel something in their core in terms of their outlook on the world. Was that an important angle for you?
Intuition's such an interesting thing, because you know before you know. So you have a hunch that something is afoot, but you don't know why, or you don't know how. It's just this hunch you have in your gut. And I think so many things in life start with a hunch. In the advertising business, I can tell you firsthand that in the creative department, you're always dealing with hunches. I've just got this feeling that maybe this might work. I've got this crazy little thing that's, nattering away at me. And then you try to develop into an idea. But intuition, I think everybody in this book it's all about intuition. They all had an intuition about something. That's exactly what it was. They just had this neat little, pea under the mattress that was just bugging them, that there was something wrong with their industry, that it could be better.
I want to make sure that we weave in some audience questions. And there's a lot here, some really good ones. There's one from Neo who's asking, in a world filled with megalomaniacs, the ideas of quieter people can go unnoticed. Do you have any advice for type B personalities so their ideas can rise above the noise?
I wish there was a really great answer to that. I am an introvert by nature. I am the epitome of an introvert. I am a situationally specific extrovert. So, like tonight. So I kind of can relate to that because I was never loud or, especially in the advertising business, you have a lot of competition and you have to champion your ideas. And the thing about advertising is it's two sides of a coin for the creative department. You have to be able to generate the ideas, and then you have to be able to sell them in the boardroom. And that was I could generate ideas, but selling in the boardroom was my biggest fear. I was terrified of getting up in front of people in a boardroom and having to just sell an idea and persuade them to spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on an idea and have to, field objections. And it was a white knuckle fear for me. So in my early days, I would let other people present my ideas, and their batting average was terrible. So I thought to myself, okay, I have to learn how to do this because I'm a quiet, by nature, introvert. I had a great mentor in the business. Trevor Goodgall was my creative director early in my career, and he was a great presenter. He was this really theatrical South African guy. Talk to me, Terrence. Yes, yes, give me magic. Yes. It was always coming at me like that. But he was a great presenter in the boardroom. He loved to put all our print or our storyboards on Bristol board. And he would, we would always go in with 3 ideas, and then, you'd lead up to your recommended idea. He would, present the first idea so magnificently. I'd be sitting there watching him present an idea that we're not recommending so brilliantly that I was afraid the client was going to buy it. And then he'd go, but this isn't right. And he'd crack it over his knee and throw it in the corner and then I was just in the back just watching this guy at work. So eventually I came to the decision or the break point where I had to learn how to present. And the way I did it was I would volunteer to be the presenter all the time. So, a creative director would say, okay, for the presentation tomorrow, who's presenting the strategy? Okay, Sally's presenting the strategy. She's going to present the creative. And I go, O'Reilly's presenting the creative. And then I go home and just rock in the dark with a cigarette, And I just volunteered over and over again. It was punishing. And I made a lot of really bad presentations. But then I slowly started to get used to it. And then I got to a point where I looked forward to presentations. And that's when I knew I had broken the back of my biggest fear. So everybody has their own journey, but my journey was to just volunteer over and over and over again till I got comfortable with it.